In the late 16th century, Europe lived under a shadow cast by the Spanish Empire, a titan of gold and steel. Its armies, the feared tercios, were the masters of the continent, and its navy, the legendary Armada, ruled the waves. From the Americas to the Philippines, the Spanish flag flew, a symbol of absolute power and unwavering Catholic faith. But in a small, waterlogged corner of its empire, a rebellion was stirring. The Netherlands, a land of merchants and mariners, refused to bend the knee. For decades, the Dutch had fought for their freedom in a brutal, grinding war. Spain, determined to crush this defiance, unleashed the full might of its military machine. City after city was besieged, starved, and sacked. The names of places like Haarlem and Naarden became whispers of horror, tales of massacres, and unimaginable cruelty that sent shivers across the continent. Europe watched in terror, believing that no one could stand against the Spanish Leviathan. The fate of the Dutch rebels seemed sealed. Imagine a city under siege. The air is thick with smoke, a constant, choking haze of gunpowder and burning homes. The streets, once bustling with trade, are now landscapes of rubble and despair. The proud church spires are shattered, and the grand merchant houses stand as hollowed-out skeletons. By day, the world is a relentless thunder of Spanish cannons, each explosion a hammer blow against the city's weakening walls, shaking the very earth beneath your feet. By night, an eerie silence falls, broken only by the cries of the wounded and the weeping of the hungry. In the cellars, families huddle together in the flickering candlelight. Their faces are gaunt, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. The food ran out weeks ago. Now they survive on rats, leather, anything to quiet the gnawing ache in their stomachs. Above them, they hear the tramp of soldiers' boots, the desperate shouts of the city's defenders, and the ever-present rumble of the siege. Hope is a dying ember, a luxury they can no longer afford. For them, there is no tomorrow, only the certainty that the walls will eventually fall and the merciless Spanish army will pour in. This was the reality for thousands, a slow, suffocating descent into oblivion. But in this land defined by water, a new idea was taking root. The Dutch had always been masters of the sea. It was their highway, their source of wealth, their very identity. While Spain built massive, towering galleons floating fortresses designed for open ocean combat, the Dutch were perfecting a different kind of vessel. Their shipyards, fueled by a desperate ingenuity, produced ships that were smaller, lighter, and far more agile. These were flyboats and pinnaces, ships designed not to overpower, but to outmaneuver. They could navigate the treacherous shallow shoals and intricate waterways of the Dutch coast, places where the deep-drafted Spanish warships dared not follow. As another Dutch city teetered on the brink of annihilation, its people starving and its defenses crumbling, a radical plan was forged. The Dutch commanders looked at their maps, not at the roads and fields, but at the rivers and canals. They saw that the sea, which had brought them wealth, could also bring them salvation. The decision was made. They would not try to break the siege from the land, where the Spanish tercios were unbeatable. They would attack from the water. They would unleash the fury of the sea itself upon their oppressors. It was a gamble of epic proportions, a final, desperate throw of the dice. The night of the attack was a maelstrom. A furious gale swept in from the North Sea, churning the waters into a chaotic frenzy of dark, monstrous waves. The sky was black without a moon or star, a perfect cloak for the coming storm of fire. From the Dutch harbors, a strange and terrifying fleet emerged. They were fire-ship-sold vessels packed with gunpowder, tar, and timber, their sails set and their helms lashed. Manned by skeleton crews who would escape at the last moment, these ships were floating bombs, sailing toward the anchored Spanish fleet. To the Spanish sailors, they appeared as phantoms, silent, burning specters gliding through the tempest. At first, there was confusion, then dawning horror. The Spanish galleons were trapped. Moored together against the storm, they were clumsy, heavy beasts, unable to maneuver in the violent winds and shallow waters. Panic erupted. Orders were shouted, lost in the roar of the wind and the crashing waves. But it was too late. The fireships slammed into the Spanish fleet. The impact was followed by a series of titanic explosions that lit up the night sky like a false, hellish dawn. Masts wrapped in flame toppled like burning giants. The screams of men, the crackle of fire, and the splintering of wood created a symphony of destruction. Spanish cannons, their barrels glowing red-hot, cooked off and fired aimlessly into the chaos. Sailors, their clothes on fire, leapt into the churning, icy waves, choosing to drown rather than burn. The sea itself seemed to boil, littered with burning debris and the sinking hulls of what was once the most feared navy in the world. It was not a battle, it was an inferno. When the sun finally rose, it revealed a scene of utter devastation. The proud Spanish fleet was a graveyard of smoldering wreckage. The siege was broken. The starving city was saved. News of the disaster spread like wildfire across Europe. For the first time, the myth of Spanish invincibility was shattered. A small nation of rebels had not only defied the empire, but had humiliated it using fire, water, and an unbreakable will to survive. This victory was more than just a single battle won. It marked a profound shift in the currents of history. It signaled the beginning of the end for Spain's maritime supremacy and the dawn of the Dutch Golden Age. The Netherlands, forged in the crucible of war, would rise to become a global economic and naval power, its fleets dominating trade routes from the Caribbean to the East Indies. The courage shown that stormy night proved that even the mightiest of empires can be brought to its knees by the defiant spirit of those who refuse to be conquered. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into history, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories of triumph and defiance.